What's going on, guys? It's John Dion here, and today I want to talk to you about how to negotiate when buying a property, how a listing campaign should play out, and how to deal with different types of real estate agents. Because there's such a low barrier to entry to become a real estate agent, 80% of new agents don't last longer than 12 months. They generally see real estate as a vehicle to earn a large income. However, they don't have thorough knowledge or general experience in the industry, so they basically just try and fake it until they make it. This results in 25% of all real estate agents doing 75% of the actual work, meaning that 75% of the industry aren't even making a real living. Of the 40,000 real estate agents in the country who had their name attached to 2 or more properties within a year, there were 80,000 real estate agents who only had their name attached to 1 property. There are so many real estate agents coming in and out of the industry. That's why we've got such diversity of really good quality real estate agents. The 75% of real estate agents who aren't making a living are generally the ones giving you a bad experience. And they're the ones that are causing that negative connotation around real estate agents and the industry altogether. The first step is to really find out who those good real estate agents are. And you may be thinking, but what if I can get lucky and find an inexperienced real estate agent and find a way to get a cheaper price for my property? But the reality is they don't really know what they're doing. And they may give you some false direction or misinformation just to try and get you over the line to make a sale. To find the good agents, go and find the recent sales history online and look for the agents that are commonly selling property in the area that you want to buy in. Find out the listings that current agent has online, even if you're not interested in those properties. Go to the open homes and then just start to talk to the agent, really get to know them. And that way you're going to figure out which agents actually know what they're talking about and which ones that don't. The problem is here when these agents aren't selling the property that you actually want to purchase. However, if they work for the same company, they can generally get involved in the sale with you being their client. And even if they don't work for the same company, it doesn't hurt to ask them if they can go and approach the owners and see if they can do a deal with you. This can sometimes get a little bit messy in between agencies, so just ensure that this is really a property that you potentially want to purchase. Secondly, know the area that you want to purchase in. Do your research, go and walk around the local schools and the local shops and get a feel on the ground of what's happening in the area. If you've got that knowledge and fundamentals, the agent is really going to respect you. If you just go in blindly, you're generally just going to put your guard up against the agent and you're going to feel like they're trying to take advantage of you or just upsell you. This can generally cause a little bit of tension between you and the agent. So just respect them how you would want to be respected. Talk to them how you'd like to be talked to. And you can find this common ground where you can both, freely, openly talk to each other. Ultimately, you just want to be the buyer that the agent wants to actually sell the property to. If you're being difficult to deal with, they prefer to help other buyers before they're going to help you. Always remember that the agent is employed by the vendor. They work for them. They're not there to do you any favors. So with you being easy to deal with, it might greatly increase the chance of you purchasing the property. If you haven't already, smash that like button as it really helps with the YouTube algorithm to grow my channel. Now let's talk about making an offer. You do generally want to start on that lower end of the range so that you've got a little bit of room to move. However, if there's some good, strong, comparable sales in the area, don't completely waste an agent's time by throwing in a really low ball offer. An agent could have 100 phone calls for a property, and there's only ever going to be one buyer. So they generally get tired of people really quickly. Just show them the respect that you would like to be showed and don't waste their time. Every buyer wants to get the property for the least amount that they possibly can. And every vendor wants to get the maximum that they possibly can for the property. The agent's job is to find this happy medium between the two ranges that both parties are comfortable with. If an offer is just way too low, it can be pretty frustrating for an agent and they probably don't want to deal with you. It's easy to let your emotions get in the way here, but just remember a property's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. So slow down, don't let the agent control your emotions, and set your spending limit before you even put an offer in. You could be the only buyer, and you're not going to know this until you rock up to the auction and you're the only one bidding. So no matter what the agent tries to tell you during the negotiation stage, just stick to your limit. Given that you've done your due diligence, you've researched the area, you know the sales history and the agents, you've done a building and pest inspection, and you've got your finance approved, we can now proceed to make an offer. As a starting point, I would ask the agent what week of the campaign that they're in. I'll go into more further detail about the campaign later in this video. Ask the agent if they've had any offers, which they're legally required to tell you, and how many contracts have been sent out to other buyers. This will give you a good gauge of the point that they're in with their campaign, how many other interested buyers there are, and where the homeowner, also known as the vendor, is at with the sale of the property. If there's been a lot of interest and offers, the agent's generally going to get the vendor to hold out until auction day. And you'll be able to sense this because the agent will be pretty vague and you'll be like, oh, we've had a couple of offers and we've had a couple of interests, but we're just going to hold out until auction day and see what happens. This should be a red flag that the property's quite hot. The best position for you to be in is when the agent starts to fumble here and talk about irrelevant things like how many people have come through the open home. This is trying to give you a false sense of high interest in the property, and it generally means you're the only serious buyer. So depending on what week of the campaign you're in, you can go in and make your first offer. A good tactic here is to make the vendor feel a fear of loss if they don't take your offer. And you can do this by putting a timeline on your offer. You can achieve this with adding in the conditions that your offer is only going to last for the next 24 or 48 hours. Otherwise, you're going to put an offer on another property. This works really well when you're the only one making an offer, because the agent would much rather you buy his property and get his commission rather than buy another agent's property. So they're going to go back to the vendor and try and negotiate them down to accept your offer. If you get a call back within the next 30 minutes, this is generally where anchoring starts to happen, where the agent will come back to you and say, okay, for example, you're at $480,000, but our vendor's at $500,000. What the agent is actually trying to do here is get you to make a higher offer. And that's where the term anchoring comes in, because they've got you at this lower 480 price and they're trying to anchor you higher to this $500,000 price. However, when it comes to negotiation, it's really now the vendor's turn to make a counter offer. So if they try and anchor you here, just go back to them and say, can you please give me a price that the vendor is willing to sell at? Or I want a counter offer. The agent might repeatedly come back to you now and try and get a higher offer without getting a counter offer from the vendor. So just note here that whoever moves next is generally going to lose out. If you can't get the vendor to come down to a lower price, you're generally going to be paying a higher price. This is now the critical moment of the negotiation, where the agent's going to try and work with both parties. And there might be a series of counter offers between you and the vendor so that you can get to that agreed price. My best advice for this phase of the negotiation is just to stick to your limit that you set at the start. If you're the only buyer, you're actually in a much stronger position than you think you are. The vendor has already financially committed to the agent and the cost of listing their property. They actually want their property sold. So if you're the only buyer, you've got much strong bargaining power. Hold firm on your offers and always ask for a counter offer. Never let the agent try and increase your offer. Even if it's $1,000, all they're trying to do is get the maximum price that they can for their vendor. With all offers, you should incorporate something called out clauses. These are used so that in the worst case scenario, if something unknown was to happen, you might have a way of getting out of the law-binding contract. These include subject to finance, subject to solicitor approval, and subject to building and pest inspection. I'll be making videos with more details around these out clauses, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification button so you don't miss a video. Every state is different, so do some research on what out clauses you can use in your specific state. Be very aware that making an offer, either verbally or written, is legally binding. So ensure you say and write these clauses with all of your offers and on your contracts. You can then have everything thoroughly checked professionally before making the biggest financial commitment of your life. Also note that when making an offer, an agent might ask for a holding deposit. This is different in every state, but it's generally around several $100s. Paying this holding deposit confirms that you're a serious buyer by showing the agent and the vendor that you're happy to be financially committed. But it's not always required depending on what state you're in. This holding deposit is fully refundable if the vendor does not accept your offer, or if they make a counter offer, which means they've declined your original offer. Next, let's go through how a typical 5-week listing campaign plays out. In week 1 of the campaign, the agent will tell the vendor how many clicks they've had on all of their listing websites, how many people have come through the open home doors, and how much general interest there are in the property. In week 2 of the campaign, if they generally have a high amount of people coming through the door and there's some good general interest, they're going to stick to the original price point that they set. However, if there's not much interest, the agent has to confront the vendor about readjusting their price. I would try and watch out for this, because if there has been a price drop, it generally means that there's not much interest. In week 3 of the campaign, they can now go and change the price, and they're confidently quoting within the price range that the vendor will sell at. This is because the vendor has to agree with the new price that they've adjusted. In week 4 of their campaign, they've got a good indication on who the final strong buyers are going to be. And if there aren't many, the agent's generally going to push to sell prior to auction. A good way to gauge this is to ask the agent how many contracts have been sent out. or how many registered bidders there are for auction day. This only applies to some states because here in Victoria we don't have registered bidders, but in New South Wales you do. This is the best time to make a pre-auction offer, and you can add into your clauses that you won't be coming to auction if the vendor doesn't accept your offer. This forces the agent to try and get the vendor to accept your offer so that the auction doesn't pass in, which looks really bad on their results. Week 5 of the campaign is generally the last week, and it creates that sort of deadline where the property has to sell. I want to know what other tips you guys might have for negotiating with real estate agents. Leave your tips in the comment section below. As always, seek your own professional, financial, legal, and property buying advice. These videos are just my opinion and my interpretation on the negotiation process. Until next time, happy house hunting.